So the NBA is at a very interesting time and space when it comes to sports gambling. As last season we spoke about how sports betting brought over $2 billion in just one quarter in New York State alone. And then when it comes to this gambling endeavor, as the NBA and other sports leagues try to corporatize this industry, which has always involved the underworld, there are going to be quite a few hiccups. And in this segment right here, we're going to learn how the Jontay Porter and also the situation with Malik Beasley has a lot of evidence of being connected to a few people that are on Knick's Twitter. Ironically, very unusual, but these guys had known months in advance that Jontay Porter and Malik Beasley would be investigated, and they even showed receipts 2 or 3 games before the initial game that was investigated for prop bets. There's definitely some sort of gambling scheme going on, but we're going to break this down layer by layer. And first, we're going to hear from Adam Silver as the NBA speaks on engagement, as they have a lot of competition for eyeballs when it comes to keeping especially younger fans engaged with their product.
The data is clear that if somebody has a bet on a game, even a small bet, they're much more likely to engage in that match. They're much more likely to watch it. They're more likely to watch it for more minutes. They're more likely to be interested in the participants and to follow the sport. So there's no doubt there's a business component to this.
Now, right here, we heard Adam Silver talk about the data. Keep in mind, it's the same data that was telling him before load management was a good thing, just for him to back up out of that while the NBA was in negotiations for a brand new TV deal. He referred back to the data not being valid when it came to load management. But right here, when it comes to the gambling, all of a sudden he goes back on that same data. Again, the rabbit hole gets deep, but we're going to break this down slow. Let's listen to him one more time.
The data is clear that if somebody has a bet on a game, even a small bet, they're much more likely to engage in that match. They're much more likely to watch it. They're more likely to watch it for more minutes. They're more likely to be interested in the participants and to follow the sport. So there's no doubt there's a business component to this.
There's definitely a business component to this, but they're going to have to accept the good and the bad. And as we go through this segment, we're going to see the Jontay Porter incident has a connection to the Malik Beasley situation, as both players had debts owed to people that were on Knick's Twitter. Again, the rabbit hole does get deep. We're going to break this slow. And just to stick to Jontay Porter and his situation, and how Terry Rozier was also kind of linked in a similar way before he was found innocent. The issue with the prop bets puts the leagues in a very sticky situation, and it also exposes that all the gambling companies, they have third-party entities working alongside with them as almost a collaborator, letting each casino know unusual bets. So some of you fellas that love hitting up some of those gambling apps, just know that once you get too good, even if you're not committing any type of crime or fixing any games, they do have an entity where they could share information and how often you do come away with the pot. Now, the NBA made an adjustment after the Jontay Porter situation, in which players who make under a certain amount of salary, you cannot place prop bets on those players. So they kind of put in a little play to avoid that system. And this is where we get into the meat and potatoes, because Pablo Torre and a few other NBA media members had tracked down a few people who actually knew in advance, about 6 months, that Jontay Porter and Malik Beasley would be investigated in some sort of gambling scheme. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
So Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, who's under contract with the Heat as we speak, he became the second player after Jontay Porter to be publicly identified as a part of this federal investigation into sports betting. And what I'm told is, contrary to Shams Charania's reporting, is that Terry Rozier has not been cleared of any wrongdoing, only that his name came up in the existing federal investigation.
That's very interesting, because that was not the narrative going on with the Terry Rozier situation. The way it was reported, it was almost as if his name was cleared. See, the league is in a sticky situation because it's the way they overtly promoting this. And for them to just have all these lingering investigations over their heads, even their media partners are reporting certain stories kind of very secretive. It's either the follow-up to these investigations are going out of the news cycle, or just the way the Terry Rozier follow-up was made, and it made it seem like his name was cleared.
And this relates directly to why Moose is this character that we're focusing on, because Free Moose _NBA, Tom, speaks to the federal investigation, which clearly is also still ongoing.
Right. On that day, the same day that Terry Rozier news drops, this guy, Free Moose _NBA, tweeted something that was even more provocative, because on that day, he posted, quote, "First was Jontay, then was Rozier. Next you'll hear about capital M, 4 asterisks, capital B, and then 6 asterisks." This guy, Free Moose NBA, posted another tweet right after that one and said, "There's another current player who's gonna have a report come out about them next. Won't say the name, but they play on the Pistons right now."
What this is the first documented mention by anyone anywhere that Malik Beasley was going to come up as part of this investigation. This is how this news actually breaks. Free Moose _NBA has it in that rule of 3 tweet.
And in this reporting, I determined this guy at the time of this tweet had something like 10,000 followers. And a lot of them were like, huh? Like, what? One of them later that night in a tweet exchange with a Pistons fan, because Malik Beasley at this point is playing for the Pistons and being awesome. He tells Moose, "You're lying, bro. Show me any amount of proof, bro. You don't know what he means to us." And Moose says, quote, "I can't yet. I'm sorry, but gotta protect myself." 15 views on that tweet.
It's incredible. I mean, this
15.
This time capsule, which is almost 6 months before the news breaks, right? On the eve of free agency, 6 months before it happens, it's happening in the mentions of this thing.
So that's the crazy thing about this is maybe you think, oh, he's just throwing shit in the wall and tries to see what sticks, right? Shot in the dark. Then he quote tweets that tweet with a screenshot of a betting slip from January 22nd, 2024. That betting slip is Jontay Porter unders. Under on points, 5.5, and under on rebounds, 3.5. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, yeah, that's the game, right? No. The game that was in the court filings that under investigation was, for the first time, was January 26th.
Sheesh, that rabbit hole is getting deep. It seems like the feds were a little bit late onto the scheme. Even their investigation was, it was off. This scheme by Porter seems like it was going on long before they just actually reported it. And this might have played out for optics reasons. They don't want to make it seem like this was a long going thing. But again, the way the NBA is interacting with the online world through streaming, or even their media partners like ESPN, now having the online personalities, these stories are going to be very hard to suppress, especially if they get way, way too deep going down that rabbit hole.
Yes.
Meaning, whoever placed the slip had the in on the Jontay Porter action months before the investigation was announced.
The question here is now very simple, right? On some level, because the entire internet, the entire NBA, we can now confirm this, right? Everybody begins to ask, Tom, who the is Moose _NBA? How did a random Twitter user on NBA Twitter know about both Jontay Porter and also Malik Beasley on the day that Terry Rozier's name was included for the first time, the second of the 3 guys, before any of this was breaking?
Making things way more complicated is that Free Moose _NBA deleted his account and then disappeared off the internet.
Now, after some deep digging, I'm not going to lie, some of these media guys were right on it. And Free Moose comes out of NYC, and me just being a former resident out there, I understand, hey, there's cameras everywhere. Especially if you go into Knicks games and you're sitting courtside, yeah, they're going to scope you out. There's all kinds of camera angles in MSG. And unlike other NBA arenas, Madison Square Garden is almost like a police station hub. More than 90% of the security at that arena is NYPD officers, because the city has a contract with James Dolan and Madison Square Garden events, I should say, not just the Knicks, it's the Rangers or just most events. And Adam Silver, or I believe Commissioner David Stern, had made a couple of fusses about some of the officers bringing their street energy into that arena. And the presence of just being over policed in that arena is kind of hostile to fans who are just coming in to have fun. But living in NYC, there's cameras everywhere. And these guys were not only able to track down this Twitter user, but he also made the mistake of agreeing to a phone call with one of these media members.
What's going on?
Nothing much, my man.
How we doing on this fine Tuesday?
Not too bad. I'm busy at work, but not too bad. I took a little time off.
Oh yeah, what's work for you?
I am a manager at an auto collision shop.
Okay. Very cool. And where's that at? In New York somewhere?
Yeah.
NYC shit right there, man. I'm not gonna lie. We paranoid as hell. We're not gonna admit exactly where we are. But he should not be on the phone with this guy, because there is technology out there where they got your voice. And as we're gonna see it play out, they're gonna be able to track these guys.
Okay. Well, cool. So thanks for getting back to me. We're doing like this story on Malik Beasley, and your Moose stuff came across when we were like going into the story. And so finally connecting with you is great. And so thank you for picking up. So what I find out is that he's in his 20s. He is a Knicks fan. Not just a Knicks fan, he is a Knicks super fan. And he goes to Madison Square Garden and everything.
Yeah, a bunch of times.
Who would you say is your favorite Knicks player of all time?
That is another mistake right there. Again, NYC, there's cameras everywhere, especially in that arena.
Gotta be Melo.
Carmelo Anthony?
Yeah, it's gotta be Melo.
But even more than that, when it comes to NBA Twitter, this guy says he's very well connected.
Mustafa Omar likes finding out stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I go by Moose. I know a bunch of people involved in the NBA space, so if I ever have any questions, I'm able to eventually get them answered. The way that, like, you're a reporter and you go and you ask your questions to everybody and you try to get whatever, I kind of do the same. I just do good research as well. I'm a stats guy. I was giving out stats and stuff that people wouldn't normally think of. My first ever post was a playoff scenario chart, very similar to the one that NBA PR account on Twitter posted, but mine was a day before, and then theirs looked identical to mine, which was very funny. So everybody kind of called out the fact that the NBA PR account basically ripped off my scenario chart. I started growing my account relatively quickly. Got suspended. Not sure why till this day. Made a second account. That one also got suspended. And now I'm kind of just off the grid of it because my accounts keep getting suspended.
Did he ever find out why he was getting suspended?
Well, he says he doesn't know.
I wasn't, like, the most family-friendly account either. I'm sure I said some things that people are going to take to liking sometimes. I'm sure that's possible.
I do like at this point how this guy is kind of all three of us in one person. He loves finding stuff out. He loves stats. He loves talking shit on Twitter unapologetically, like a bean.
Sounds like every fucking New Yorker, I'm not gonna lie. We love talking shit.
He loves talking shit on Twitter unapologetically, like a bean.
And he is the sort of guy, again, who wants people to know that he knows things, including a forthcoming report about Malik Beasley. So on January 30th, 2025, the same day that the federal investigation into Terry Rozier was announced, he tweets that thing out. The prophecy of Malik Beasley.
I mean, I just did it to be a little cryptic. I knew nobody would believe it, but obviously it's fine. I just put it out there just to be a little, like, cryptic for when it did come out. People could look back at it the way that they did when the news did came out.
But how did you come across the Malik Beasley info?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people in the basketball and the gambling space, so, you know, word does get around. I eventually it gets to me from people that I know. Obviously people I'm not going to sit here and name, but I do have people that do know a lot about, the gambling ring and NBA and stuff. And I didn't know about Beasley when he was actually doing it.
And just to be clear here, that's Moose talking, right? He's saying Malik Beasley did it. That's not us saying that.
I found out this past January 2025, and obviously now they are suffering having to let him walk in free agency and replace him with somebody like Duncan Robinson, who's not even close to the caliber player that I thought Malik Beasley was this year.
So when I asked Mustafa Omar who told him about Malik Beasley specifically, he kept claiming that this was something he saw on Reddit, which was kind of strange.
This is something that was dug up from Reddit. I mean, everything that I found and I tweet about, I only tweet about it because I find it publicly first.
I know people, I know things, but also I saw this on Reddit.
Again, of course, Medea's family reunioned this. We scanned through everything we could find on Reddit, looking for a hidden Malik Beasley. Where is Malik Beasley here? We could find nothing resembling this prediction. And of course, by the way, to state the obvious again, if this was publicly noted anywhere, then we would have probably heard about it in the way that we heard about this tweet. It would have gone viral, it would have been surfaced. The prophecy would have been someone else's and not Moose's.
So then I started asking Mustafa Omar, Moose, about the Jontay Porter FanDuel betting slip that he posted, which again was placed on January 22nd, 2024, months before the Jontay Porter investigation was ever public. Now, when I asked him about this, he became cagier than he'd been at any point in our conversation.
Honestly, I don't know much about the slip. Like I said, it was just sent to me from someone, but...
He said it was sent to him from someone else. It wasn't his betting slip. He just happened to get it and then post it onto his account. And this is where we should mention something we have not yet told Moose, which is that deep in our reporting, we found yet another screenshot. Yes, another one from Moose's private paywall Discord, where he was trying to drum up business for his next meme coin, the sequel, not just National Coin Association, which he apparently, lost his shirt on. The goal this time, a quote, over 100 million market cap, end quote. And on November 27th, 2024, he wrote explicitly, quote, this next project is going to have people involved that no other project would even be able to get their hands on. Some names I can't even legally mention because they made so much money off a certain NBA gambling incident last season and are facing trials. But they will be involved in this.
So hold on. At this point in time, November 2024, the only gambling incident known, confirmed in the NBA is Jontay Porter.
Yes. In the Jontay Porter story, the feds found this deeply sloppy private Telegram chat. And the most memorable character in Jontay Porter's group chats was the owner of a deli, on Roosevelt Island here in our city of New York. And this deli owner, who I mentioned at the top of the episode, was not merely a person that Jontay Porter owed, quote, significant gambling debts to, according to federal prosecutors. I also remember this deli owner as a New Yorker because he had been previously embroiled in a scandal of a different kind. And this is the scandal that involved an unhoused woman who fell into the subway tracks as the F train was approaching. And as a result, she lost both of her legs. This woman sued, wound up settling with the MTA, which runs the New York City subway, for $4 million. The person that she trusted to cash one of her final settlement checks for around $800,000, according to these legal documents, happens to be this same deli owner.
Just to put this into proper perspective, they found a deli owner in small-ass Roosevelt Island, which is almost like finding a needle in a haystack in NYC. It's so small. It's mostly apartment buildings. And to find this lawsuit and it being the same guy that Jontay Porter owed money to is insane. Pablo Torre and this crew right now is doing some Illuminati level of investigating. Holy shit.
What the fuck?
By the name of Amar Awade. And Amar allegedly took that check, the city's payback, to, again, a homeless, legless, wheelchair-bound woman who was also suffering from mental illness. He took that check to his friend who was a bank manager, and then they got the $800,000 deposited into the account of his deli, which Amar denied in court in a case that was eventually dismissed, although he did admit that $80,000 did wind up in his personal account. So prosecutors, for the record here, alleged that he spent the woman's money on, quote, gambling trips and wedding expenses, including a bachelor party in Las Vegas and honeymooning in Turks and Caicos.
This is as dark as it gets, this story.
I missed the part where we were talking about Larsa Pippen.
My man spent that money like a woman. God damn. He did everything but get a fucking BBL.
Things were so lighthearted back then.
What I want our audience to know is that what I started doing at this point was comb through every publicly accessible social media profile we had ever found for our guy, Moose. And while looking through the names of the people that Mustafa Omar is friends with on Facebook, I found one extremely familiar name.
The Twitter user that's named Moose is friends with the same guy that Jontay Porter owes money to, the bodega owner that cashed that $800,000 check for the one-legged lady. This shit is crazy.
So he's not lying when he says, I'm connected with a guy who's involved in the NBA's gambling incident.
Yes, a certain NBA gambling incident. There, in fact, is a connection. We have just verified that. They are literal Facebook friends. And furthermore, what I did with my life was I naturally plunged further into the Amar Awade rabbit hole. And this one brought me to a source that I encountered here in New York City who knew him from back when they were both frequenting these allegedly illegal private poker games in Manhattan around 5 to 8 years ago. And my source says that this game that they were playing in actually took place in a private apartment. This is how this worked. Residential building, top floor, just blocks away from Madison Square Garden, actually. It has since moved, but that's where it was at the time. And it's a sort of game where the minimum buy-in is $2,500, aka the monthly allotment for weed, according to the trap rules that we encountered before. There is no maximum, it turns out. And it's otherwise full of lawyers and doctors and hedge fund managers. And also, according to my source, several of the names on those Jontay Porter group chats who also wound up getting arrested. One of those Porter associates who got arrested was a dealer at this poker game, I am told. Another dealer who went by the name Bruce. And both of those guys, obviously, also got ensnared in this probe. And anyhow, when I showed my source to, again, fact check this profile, this Facebook profile of Amar Awade, what he immediately said, without any knowledge of any of this episode, I didn't mention Mustafa Omar and how they're friends or anything. I showed him this photo, and my source just immediately laughs over the phone. And he identifies him as, oh, yeah, I have stories about this guy. And what my source told me is that even after Amar was identified as being involved in the Jontay Porter investigation, remember, Jontay Porter was banned for life from the NBA as of April 2024, Amar was still texting people trying to set up poker games. Quote from my source, I do remember thinking, is he so arrogant that he thinks he's above this? End quote. This takes us directly back to the phone call that Tom was having with the guy who loves Carmelo Anthony, who is Facebook friends with Amar, who had also just been telling you, Tom, I believe, the following about the Jontay Porter betting slip screenshot that he tweeted out back in January of 2024.
Honestly, I don't know much about the slip. Like I said, it was just sent to me from someone, but
So here I had to do the most important thing in this conversation. I had to ask Moose about his connection to Amar directly. Are you friends with or do you know Amar Awade?
No.
No?
Damn, that's his first hint that he fucked up, even talking to them on the phone.
No.
Okay, because I saw that you're Facebook friends with Amar, and so I figured maybe that was somehow you were associated with him.
No.
Like, this guy's been super chatty this whole time, and when I bring up Amar Awade, just one word, no. Which brings us back to the Facebook profile of Amar. Another photo that you can see on it at the top, the banner photo. It's a bit blurry. It's like someone is taking the photo from way back in the 300 section, and it's kind of zoomed in.
Now, for those of you that are on the visual version, this is a picture of Melo dapping up someone courtside at MSG during a playoff game. So right now, these reporters are going to triangulate all these photos that were taken during that game to try to figure out who these guys are. Once again, it's some Illuminati investigation that Pablo Torre and his crew has been doing. And I don't think these fellas from Queens were ready for this type of heat coming down their back.
At the center of this photo is a guy who looks like Amar standing courtside on the baseline at Madison Square Garden. And what's important here is that in this moment, this person is also dapping up a tall black dude dressed in all yellow, a yellow sweater with matching yellow shorts, wearing a baseball cap. The photo was uploaded. You can see it on the Facebook profile. The photo was uploaded on April 23rd, 2024. So this is during the 2024 NBA playoffs. So what do? You go to the game logs. You go to Basketball Reference, schedule and results. You click just to see if the Knicks were playing any time around that date on April 23rd, 2024. And you can see on that date in the Knicks schedule, April 22nd, they beat the Philadelphia 76ers in an extremely dramatic game at the Garden.
So I just got to jump in here to point out that this game at Madison Square Garden happened 5 days after Jontay Porter got banned for life from the NBA, which means that it also happened while the feds were actively investigating Amar Awade, who was standing right there, courtside, for his role in that same historic gambling scandal. And now, when you pull multiple angles on this specific play, what you can clearly see in retrospect is the identity of the tall black dude in all yellow, the same one Amar Awade is dapping up in his Facebook banner photo after arguably the greatest play in modern Knicks history. Because, of course,
It's Moose's GOAT, Carmelo Anthony. Amazing.
He looks jubilant. It looks like he's the happiest day of his... I mean, look, all of which reminded us of something we had found pretty early on in our search for any tweet that had tagged Moose_NBA. We had found an angle of this play, of the three, from the baseline shot off a cell phone, and the video credit was, quote, courtesy Moose_NBA.
Get the fuck out of here.
It's right there on the right side of your screen. This is the thing that hit us literally as we were sitting down to tape today.
Now let's watch this same play from the Madison Square Garden camera that's looking straight out at the basket, so you can see the full baseline.
And after countless more hours of Twitter and Facebook searching, we realized something. The guy sitting next to Amar Awade, who's pictured holding his cell phone, which I can only assume is the cell phone he used to shoot the video of that Dante DiVincenzo 3, had actually identified himself on Twitter by name as the guy who taped it and sent it to Moose_NBA. And we saw this because Cell Phone Guy, it turns out, was beefing with Barstool Sports, which had aggregated the video without giving either of them credit. And by now, as a student of the Rule of Three, Tom easily recognized Cell Phone Guy. he was a third person we had noticed while combing through various Facebook albums. A person better known as Amar's brother, Omar Awade. And even though Moose denied even knowing Amar to Tom, we found more pictures of all three of these guys. Graduations, parties, weddings. We even found a video of Omar wearing a Spreewell jersey going to a Knicks game with Moose, who was wearing a Carmelo Anthony jersey that by now, all of us had seen a lot.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Omar, the newest member of Spectators. On my way to the Knicks game, you see me decked out in the Spreewell. Had to do it to him. Magic is in town. Just smoked him by 30. About to smoke him by another 30. And I'm on the way. Come roll with me.
At which point, it became clear that Moose_NBA, Twitter's Malik Beasley prophet, was more than just Facebook friends with alleged Jontay Porter co-conspirator Amar Awade. Moose was his relative, his cousin. And this is where it takes us back now to the legal documents as we try to connect all the dots here, right? So generally observing the following. In the Jontay Porter legal documents, quote, a relative of the defendant, Amar Awade, whose identity is known to me, placed a $10,000 parlay bet through betting company one on the under for player one's three-pointers, assists, and steals. It goes on to talk about how the relative won $85,000, netting a profit of $75,000.
Sheesh. For those of you watching the visual version, Amar's name is on the paperwork for the investigation by the feds on Jontay Porter. Once again, these guys are connecting the dots. And these fellas out of NYC, man, they really underestimated the level of investigation that they was gonna tie all this together with. Whew. The rabbit hole definitely does get deep.
And so just saying that Amar Awade, in terms of the information he was sharing, who he was bringing into the thing he was already caught up in. We don't know which family member it is. They're anonymous, according to the federal prosecutors. But family is literally mentioned in the federal investigation a number of times.
I had to follow up with Mustafa to make sure he had his story straight on this. So I asked him again. You did not get information on Malik Beasley from Amar Awade, who is part of the Porter case?
No. Like I said, I got it off of Reddit.
Do you have that Reddit forum that you got it from that you could show me?
I could probably find it.
Yeah.
Would you be fine with me searching it and then getting it to you on Twitter?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Man, that motherfucker is not hitting you back, brother. He is not hitting you back. That is code red to, drop that number if you have to. These guys are on your heels.
All right. Let's do that, son.
Despite the preponderance of evidence from his own posts and his own brags to having a connection to someone in this, he claims zero knowledge and that he got it from Reddit.
Yeah, he said he got it from Reddit and it was public. And after I hung up with Mustafa Omar, who promised me to hit me back on Twitter and send that Reddit post that would clear him of all of this and just say, hey, they had it. It wasn't me. What happened next was I logged back into my Twitter account and I DM'd him back a reminder being like, hey, if you can just grab that Reddit post and send it back to me. Bloop. I got an error message. And that error message said message not sent, sending direct message failed. I thought my internet was down or that he turned off his DMs, but nope, guys. He had shut down his account.
Damn, I called that out perfect. Yo, when I say us New Yorkers are paranoid people, that dude shut down that account. Man, he paid it in full if he owed any money. He made sure that account could be erased from the record books. Shit, he might even send him a screenshot himself to tell him that the account is disconnected. He's out of there.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to check his Facebook profile. And guess what? That too, guys, was taken down seconds after we got off that phone. All of it gone.
The timeline has the Jontay Porter betting slip, right? This is now what Moose had posted. That was dated what, Tom?
The betting slip, if you look at it closely, it says January 22nd, 2024, okay? The game one in the Jontay Porter case came 4 days later, January 26th. So that's important here because this actually predates that game one.
Which is to say, I mean, that what we are circling here, what we've been exhaustively reporting here, actually is ostensibly an expansion of the scope that the Eastern District of New York, the U.S. Attorney's Office, had published, which started 4 days after this.
Yep, on the 26th. So the feds, the way they were investigating DeJounte Porter, they actually went through the scheduling a little bit too late because he was already fixing games before they started their investigation. So I believe it was on the 26th is where they started. And in reality, he was fixing games for a while, way before that. Again, the rabbit hole gets deep on this situation. And for those of you that are watching the visual version of this, I've included all the screenshots.
But here we have all of these connections to indicate that actually the dude who's ensnared in that thing, Amar, is connected to the dude who posted this thing from 4 days before that.
So remember, we have the betting slip January 22nd. We have game one of this inquiry with the feds on January 26th. Then 5 days later, we get a flurry of unusual betting activity on Malik Beasley's unders for his 2.5 rebounds.
Yes, and that unusual betting was also reported by a third-party company that's in collaboration with a lot of sports books. That one entity is supposed to notify everyone else on unusual sports betting. And I'm gonna add a little extra sauce on top, more than likely because everything's on an algorithm. The odds that they're gonna give you may end up looking different on your app versus someone else who's more of a novice player. Make no mistake about it, they're sharing that information.
At a sports book that flagged this to ESPN. So we have within less than 10 days, the betting slip, the first Jontay Porter game, and the Malik Beasley game. We have to note the timeline here that this January 31st game it's not like a random game in terms of the timeline of things. It puts it within basically a week.
It's all when this stuff was happening. In our example, again, of the rule of three, this is how this all was unfolding. What we've established in that timeline is that there are some things that are documented and undeniable and confirmed in terms of, yes, connecting, or at the very least, moving the dots close together. They're all conspicuously proximate to each other. And by the way, we've also been making calls about Malik Beasley. Malik Beasley's attorney, Steve Haney, Tom, he did send us a statement, right?
Here's the statement from Steve Haney. Presuming someone is guilty when they haven't been charged with the crime, let alone convicted, is a dangerous narrative. The mere allegations have caused irreparable harm to Malik's image, reputation, and career.
Now, here's another interesting dynamic at play. Malik Beasley may have a lawsuit in his hands if he is found clear of all these allegations, because the timing of the news of him being investigated, it came out right before he was about to sign, I believe it was a $42 million a year contract. So unlike Terry Rozier, who was already locked into his contract, this affected Malik Beasley's money. And this is a guy who had probably a record-breaking season when it comes to three-point shooting. Last season, he was one of the better three-point shooters in the whole league. But once again, the benefits the NBA is seeing as far as the money side to this whole gambling venture, it outweighs the negatives.
The note I want to get to at the end here, by the way, is that when it comes to, so what explains all of this, right? Our investigation continues. It does. It continues because we have reason to believe that these are not coincidences, that these are connections. We have reason to believe that when it comes to unusual betting action coming in on an under, Malik Beasley winds up hitting the over pretty hard through his level of hunger and play. But you also have Moose and Amar and this Facebook friendship and these details and these pictures courtside that we should not say what we are tempted to. This is where I should probably mention that the lawyer for Amar Awade, who is currently on house arrest, declined comment to PTFO, as did the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York, which is an entity that I now wonder about too. Because what I found out today is that our moose hunt has actually expanded the FBI's scope of the Jontay Porter scandal, the betting scandal, beyond what the government itself has been able to publicly establish, at least. And we have connected it now to the prophecy of the Malik Beasley investigation. If not Malik Beasley, noted garbage time god, himself. But maybe my biggest takeaway here, as we try to square that particular circle, concerns what it really takes to investigate a scandal like this in the age of legalized sports gambling. And legalized sports gambling is obviously everywhere now. DraftKings was the sponsor of this show for the first year and a half of our existence. They remain the major partner, and to their credit, by the way, they want to catch bad actors. They are incentivized to try and flag those suspicious bits of betting activity. That's how a lot of this stuff is being caught in real time. And yet, this age has spawned a wave of conflicting incentives and new vulnerabilities. The characters everybody needed to study this entire time were on the place that we all say we want to leave, but clearly haven't. NBA Twitter.
And NBA Twitter indeed is an interesting place. But make no mistake about it, the way the prop bets went for the Jontay Porter investigation was him actually going under what he was projected to do according to the algorithms. Let's say he was projected to get 3 rebounds. He would actually just sit out the game, say he has an injury, and leave the game early. But in the case of Malik Beasley, the analytics and data kind of expose he's the best player performing in garbage time. So that right there is kind of a red flag. So let's say he's projected to get 3 rebounds. He would go out of his way, and the footage actually shows it. He's going out of his way to grab boards, and he's playing very hard even in garbage time where his team is up 20. He did this in Minnesota, and he's done this in Detroit. So it is what it is. The rabbit hole gets deep on a lot of this information, and ironically enough, through this investigation, the feds actually opened up the date range that they were looking at from when Jontay Porter actually fixed these games. Again, there's a lot of things that's conflicting. The NBA in a major partnership with these sports books, also their media partners have huge advertising dollars coming in from these sports books. So a lot of the reporting after the initial investigations that are happening, the follow-ups are not getting the same kind of attention, and they're kind of being suppressed and squashed. But we'll see how this plays out. This is not the first, and this will definitely not be the last. But interesting enough, all this was linked to a couple of guys that were on NBA Twitter, Knick's Twitter specifically, and had randomly tweeted out who would be under investigation in the near future. I gotta say, the NBA as well as other sports leagues are just looking at the dollars rolling in, and they're thinking to themselves the dollar amount might justify the few headaches that we're gonna get. But it is what it is. You guys definitely hit up the link in the description below. We got a few playlists in there. We got game footage. We got more NBA stories. And until next time, you fellas, stay safe. Peace.